Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. I wanted to start with something if I could share. We are excited to announce that we are on track for pursuing a Theater Awards night, and please save the date for Saturday, January 24th at the Capitol Center for the Arts. So this is just a culmination of several years of work from volunteers and the interim board. And so thank you all for your belief in the organization and our efforts. And this feels so great to be able to announce this. And there's a lot of momentum, and wait till you hear more from our group tonight. But at the moment, I'm just going to turn things over to Matty, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
So let me just share my screen, and we will talk about what I will be helping with mostly this year, which is the adjudication process. Fun process, near and dear to everybody's heart. Definitely Justin, as he's been managing it for quite some time. But we're going ahead and we're doing the adjudication process for this year. We're getting it underway. For people who haven't done it, and I'm not sure if anybody here who is on the call has not participated in it, there is a huge component of the New Hampshire Theater Awards, and this is kind of our lifeblood to get us to the event, right? There's a lot of production involved in the event, and there's a lot of heart and soul that's poured into what happens that night. But before that even happens, there is this entire year-long process that we all go through to make sure that what we actually present at the Theater Awards is our best effort, right? The most outstanding folks who have been working on theater all year that have been in certain categories will actually be recognized that night. And we want to do our very, very best to get us to that point where we feel comfortable and where we have a really great time. Outstanding acting, outstanding directing, all of that is really important. But the celebration of theater, of course, is why we do this. And so we're going to continue to kind of look at both at the same time. But right now I'm going to be talking about the adjudication process, as I will be the main point of contact for managing it. So let's talk about the adjudication process a little bit. For those of you who haven't done it before, this is really the 3 S's of the adjudication process. You sign up, right? Your theater company just has to sign up. We have this theater sign up form. We will be sending out formal communication after this meeting to theater companies who have participated in the past. I'm going to be looking up a bunch, and if you can think of any that may not be on that list that have formed, we haven't done this in a while, so we want to make sure that we get everybody and we're all as inclusive as possible and want to give them an opportunity to understand the Theater Awards. I am more than willing to reach out to them and explain the adjudication process and how it works. And just have a one-on-one with anybody who's part of that organization. But in the case that you've been part of this, please sign up, and we will give you the link as with a formal email that will go out later on at some point soon. So once you sign up, you assign a liaison to be our contact. What we want and what we hope is that over the course of the year, you're going to sign up shows, right? That's part of the reason why we have an awards night, is that we have shows to adjudicate. So we will take these shows, and for every show that you submit from your organization, we will also require an adjudicator who's part of that process. So somebody from your organization that is willing to go see 6 shows across the state, across the granite state. I've always loved it to be an adjudicator. At different times when I was randomly involved in the Theater Awards, at times I just said, you know what, I want to go see 6 shows. And I'd also like to look at them kind of with my critical eye and see whether or not there's anything that I can pick up or I can glean or learn from the production that's up there. So it's always been a great joy for me to do it. We have a show submission form this year that also kind of doubles as our adjudication form. So we encourage you to use that show submission form to make sure that your shows are signed up and your adjudicators are signed up. Now, you may not have all the information up front. That's okay. We expect that. Every year we expect that to happen. So what you would do is make sure that you earmark that as soon as you know when that information is coming about. We always tell people too that even if you don't know what show it is, but you kind of know the dates, then put in a TBD and still submit it and make sure that your adjudicator gets locked up for the year so that we can start the process of getting them assigned to shows as well. So that's the submit shows and adjudicators. Again, we have that submission form and we'll make sure that it goes out to all theaters. Now we want you to stay connected. So we're doing something different this year. I was telling the theater, the interim board a couple of weeks ago, how we started the New Hampshire Theater Awards and what were the requirements of communication when we first started. People forgot that in 2001, email wasn't a main form of communication. And so in 2002, when we did our first year of adjudicating, we actually didn't require people to have an email address. Everything was handled through the phone, and everything was handled through paper ballots back then, because that's where the technology was at. And that's where we had to start. We're lucky to have moved beyond email, but now for 20 years, it's been a great kind of medium for us to use. We're hoping that now we can move the entire New Hampshire theater community onto Slack. And Slack is a great tool if you've used it at work. I use it for a myriad of different things. I use it as part of, like, interest groups, fabricating. My interest group is fabricating arcade cabinets, so I'll use it for that. But you can use it for pretty much anything. And so New Hampshire Theater Alliance has set up their own Slack community, which is such an important part of us staying small and staying connected as a community. We want our adjudicators to be on there. We want to sign them up, and that'll be part of the training that we will offer for adjudication to make sure that they understand Slack and how to use it. But we also want our theater companies to be on there as well. Communication is such an important part of this entire process. We need to be communicating. We need to be one very important community, because that's why we do this. And so we're trying to simplify everything and make sure that if everybody gets on Slack, they can get their questions answered about their shows. If they're adjudicators, where am I supposed to be? If we need to fill in really quickly, we can actually have that conversation within that community. But those are some of the ways that we can utilize it to our advantage. And we'll expand the use of the NH Theater Alliance Slack workspace as we go along. But we really want people, and we encourage people to sign up for the Slack community. So those are the 3 S's of the adjudication process this year. Now,
Matty, do you mind if I just read out some questions from the chat?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I'm not looking at the chat. My
That's okay. If you don't mind. Andrew asked if there's a link available for the rules regarding eligibility.
We will make sure that you get that as soon as possible. I think Justin might have those rules available, as we're using the same rules. We haven't really changed the rules for availability, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, there hasn't been a change to that info, but our website's a little different than it used to be. So let me just make sure that the stuff is hosted and easy to get placed, and I'll send a link out either by the end of the night, by the end of tomorrow. So
thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Andrew.
Was there another one? I'm sorry. You said it worked.
Nope, there was one, just the one question, sorry.
Okay, I see 2 things there. I'm afraid to open it. It's going to stop everything.
Yep, no, I'll monitor the chat for you if that's okay.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so timing. From January 24th tonight to March 1st, we're going to start sending out the emails to get people signed up for the 2023 year, I guess it would be, for 2024 for the awards night. So we'll start that process. And within 5 weeks, we want to begin training. Training is such an important component in history. We've been trying to get on top of this training thing. But one of the things that I'm really excited about this year, that I have not been as excited for in the past, was the amount of tireless work and dedication that this board has put in to the adjudication process. Well, not the process, I'm sorry, the ballot. The ballot is wonderful this year. I've seen it. I looked at it. I said, wow, the improvements that this group has made, I cannot be raving enough about. It is great. It is wonderful. And when you see it, I think you'll see that a lot of the improvements that we've been trying to make since 2003 have actually been made this year. So training is going to be obviously a very important component to this. And we want to start March 1st. Dan Pelletier is going to be heading up training. So I want to turn it over to him to talk about anything that he wants to related to the ballot, to training. It's all yours, Dan.
Thanks, Matty. Hi, everybody. Dan Pelletier, interim vice president. As this said, I'll be kind of taking the lead on training, at least to start, as I was one of the architects of the new ballot. I believe we have all but one of the key architects on the ballot for the ballot on the meeting right now. And Thank you, Maddie, for your kind words. If you haven't got a chance to look at the new ballot language, it was a 2-year process putting it together. And we think it's going to give us a much simpler time and a fantastic output. But as far as training goes, not only did we revamp the ballot, but we wanted to think about, the things that have made training difficult in the past and what we can do to make it easier. So just like this meeting here, we're going forward, all training we're trying to do virtually. So it'll be online. We'll be walking you through the changes in the ballot, especially again, where it's new ballot, a lot of similarities, but a fair amount of differences. So we're going to be walking you through the new ballot, talking about kind of just to give a little bit of background. But our key things are going to be making sure everybody understands, how we want the rubric to be used, the best practices for using it, clarify any questions on technical language and theater jargon. We really wanted to set out to put together a ballot that could be used by anyone, because we know that we have a wide variety of adjudicators, from people that have doctorates in theater history to people that just really love theater and want to be a part of it. And we wanted to make sure that everybody could partake in that. So as I said, everything will be online and trying to, similar to this. And then the other plan is, once we've gotten a few trainings out of the way and we really get a sense for what are the frequently asked questions and things like that, that we will start also to record them and create some living training modules that, like, if you're, say you did your training in May and you don't, for some crazy reason, you don't have to adjudicate a show till October, you might want a refresher. So we're going to put some videos on the YouTube channel and the website, so you can either watch a full training or watch some reminder videos, and really just try to create as many tools as possible to make the ballot as easy to use, easy to understand, and keep everything, going very well. But I really think the ballot will be very user friendly, and I look forward to getting to share, go into detail and unleash it on the world.
Awesome. So any questions about the training, about the adjudication process, of anything that we've talked about so far before we kick into the final component of it?
I have a quick question. I know I was approached about being an adjudication manager. Just curious if you're going to be training the managers a little in advance of training adjudicators, so we have a little bit of advanced knowledge if someone asks us a question.
Dan, do you want to answer that?
That's an excellent question. I believe we are going to I don't know if we'll necessarily be able to get you something before everybody else, but we will definitely be giving you a little bit more of an in-depth training, so you can field those questions. Again, one of the things that we don't know what all of the questions will be so far. We've anticipated them. We've started stockpiling what we anticipate a frequently asked questions thing will be, but we will, especially this first year, do a really good job of taking care of our adjudication managers, laying out what the expectations for that are. And then again, anytime that you do, if someone asks you a question you don't know, you can reach out to Maddie or anybody else that'll be on the permanent adjudication team. But yes, there will be some specific, more in-depth training for our adjudication managers.
Okay. And then addressing Maddie, I know you talk about this Slack environment. Not all of us are computer people. So are you going to offer a little extra support for those of us that are not really computer literate?
We were going to, am I on mute?
No,
No, you're
not.
good.
Okay, I figured, computer illiteracy, there you go. No, so Beth, we were going to offer up, as part of the training, I was going to carve out 5 minutes of Dan's time. Whenever we do training on the ballot, I want to also sign people up for Slack to just get us there,
Okay.
right? Like, just go through the process of making sure that you feel comfortable with it, that you understand what certain things are. I also have some YouTube videos that I've kind of commandeered that we're going to have adjudication manager meetings with myself. I think that just makes sense, right? Like, we'll be kind of that inner part of the team to figure out, okay, so what are we going to do here? Who's going to handle what? make people feel comfortable with their roles. And then as well, make sure that you feel comfortable with Slack.
Okay.
If I could follow up on Beth's question, especially about adjudication managers, in years past, the company had someone who was serving in that role. Is that changing? Is there a separate set of adjudication managers that are operating for the organization, meaning the New Hampshire Theater Alliance, and not directly from each company?
Maddie, could I answer Andrew's question?
Absolutely. Yep.
Just to sort of disambiguate what we're talking about here. So we're trying to take what was a good idea and expand it. So what was always a good idea was for the companies to have somebody who's their single point of contact with the NHTA, right? And we've called that person the liaison, and that's not going to change. So every company will have a liaison, and that person will be the only person that we'll reach out to when we want to communicate stuff. And that keeps us from creating a game of telephone inside your organizations, right? But we think that the NHTA should have a liaison for you, right? So we want to prevent a situation where maybe you've heard from or talked to 3 or 4 different people in our organization, and maybe heard conflicting things or something different. And we also want to sort of parallelize the effort of administering adjudication as best we can, so that it's not all just running through one person. So the idea of adjudication manager is volunteers like Beth, who are familiar with our process, who work with Matty on the adjudication team, who will be assigned to individual companies and to be that company's primary point of contact during the adjudication season. So does that make sense, Andrew?
Yeah, it's a new term. And for those of us who hadn't heard about this, it's another layer of administration. And it's good to hear that there'll be a specific point of contact. It may be different people, which can be good as long as the training is consistent and the answers that are meted out by each manager are consistently applied from company to company, because that has been a challenge in the past of different companies getting different answers. Depending on who they've spoken with and who, relationships.
I think Matty's plan is to run a tight ship.
You know who to yell at, Andrew.
I like it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so going back to the timeline really quickly. So we talked about training beginning on March 1st. Signing up theaters. And of course, we could be signing theaters into March 1st and a little bit beyond. We're hoping to get as many as we possibly can within this time frame. Once we get to May 1st, and again, this is tentative, where, when I say tentative, I am pretty confident we're going to be ready to go by May 1st, but we're leaving ourselves a little bit of wiggle room to talk about the possibility that things could, depending upon how we go with theater companies and we get people signed up. Again, we haven't done this for 3 to 4 years. There are some of the unknowns that we're trying to kind of build up to make sure that we're ready for May 1st. But with confidence in terms of doing this in the past, we're going to head towards May 1st as our go live date, our launch date. And that's when adjudication begins. Training's going to continue throughout the year. Dan's going to do a great job at, training people up whenever they come on board and we feel like they need to get trained up. And we'll make sure that they go through the training process before we stick them into a situation where they're adjudicating. But on May 1st, we're going live. So what we're telling theater companies is your show has to be post May 1st to be considered for the New Hampshire Theater Awards. And we're thinking December 15th at this point to be a cutoff, or December 11th to the 15th. So we're going to continue to actually push the middle of the month for that month, and then try to get that wrapped up so that we can be ready for the theater awards. But basically, that is the time frame in which we're going to actually do the adjudication process. I know the slide says 31st, but we're going to be doing a lot of work in between December 11th to December 31st. So any questions about that? I mean, that's the part that most people understand and know because we've done it.
I'm just going to raise the question that I raised at the last meeting, which is that we understand that's a truncated schedule and you have to pick a time to start. And the fact that you have a goal of January 24th in keeping with previous awards organizations means you're going to lose companies who do a lot in the spring, and they have to wait a whole year and a half before they can be considered again. Was there a discussion at all about looking at an alternative date for the theater awards so that you could get a full year's worth of consideration and maybe do an event that doesn't happen in the dead of winter and run the risk, like we had a few years back, of having decreased participation the day of because of seasonal stuff?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there's a lot of reasons why that date is great for us. And it's true that it's winter in New Hampshire. It's also true that it's basically the date that we've done 18 other theater award shows. In terms of our ability to get a venue in a way that we can afford, the winter is good because it's not touring musical season necessarily, right? And you know, for a variety of reasons, the contract that we have is great for us in the community, and so that's going to be the date. So it's true that you know, this year, if you have a spring show, it's not going to get adjudicated. That's going to be true no matter when we have the show. So next spring, if you have a spring show, it'll be adjudicated, and it will be in that year's award show as per our standard operating procedure.
Well, the reason I bring the question up is because I know a number of organizations who had expressed interest in looking at a different format for the awards show, instead of it being like a grand gala performance on stage and passive event for the, you know, the recipients, that creating something more of a bigger social party where everybody could get involved was one of those things. And I know that several groups had expressed interest in, since we have to rebuild and restart and pick a good time to start, that maybe, you know, considering that option of rethinking when you do the event and how you do the event might be of interest and might be worthy of consideration of, say, a survey that goes out to previous groups. But again, I'm just throwing that out there, but it sounds like a determination has been made. So my point has been made, and we're moving forward.
And just one piece of information that I would just add to that, Andrew, is that we did have some good discussion in our most recent board meeting around kind of the whole idea of the event show and the format. And so what we kind of all resolved on is that we really wanted to keep with the traditions that had been started. And as we're trying to kick things back on, really kind of rest on what people are familiar with and get that back up and going. But the actual format and what happens, we do have a call for volunteers for people who are interested in producing the actual awards show. And so how and what takes place, whether that's more of a party or a more passive awards ceremony or a gala or what have you, is something that we certainly would be willing to think about, and that will be in the hands of those producers to bring to the board for consideration.
Yeah, but it's definitely limited by the fact that you're sitting in a house of 1,300 seats looking at a stage. It's not like at a park during the summer where everybody's hanging out and playing softball.
Yes,
or
no,
doing,
it won't be in a park in the summer.
They don't have
right.
that much influence on the production value. At any rate, I appreciate that it was considered, and thank you.
I am, Andrew, trying to put together what I've called the award show in 90 minutes or less. I don't know if it's going to work as well in real life as it is in my brain, but it was something we've discussed on in our meeting and trying to revamp things. I mean, you know that I'm also pro team party, but I understand the, you know, traditions and expectations, and it might be vocal minority that is looking for some change. So I do think we want to do some more research on it. It is something that came up, but we wanted to focus on today's topics at the last meeting, and then those will.
The good news is that when we had our last meeting, we weren't sure that we could have an NHTA anymore, and we said we needed a pretty strong injection of volunteer energy in order to make this happen again, and we got that. And so we do have an NHTA. We do have a date. We do have a reservation with the venue. It is something that's been really successful for us. We have an entire year. I think today is the 24th. So we have 365 days to build that night and that weekend. And I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great, and there'll be a lot of opportunity for input. So
Great. So if there aren't any other questions regarding the adjudication process, or
I actually had a question.
Oh.
Hi, sorry. My name is Jordan. I'm pretty brand new to the process. I'm standing in as a representative of Dive In Productions. We do most of our work on the Seacoast, so we're pretty new to this. I'm really excited. I am curious, you might have already explained this. It seems like it's probably one of the basics, but how many adjudicators attend each performance? Does that depend on the production size or classification, or is there a standard number for each show that gets adjudicated?
6 as
Yeah.
the goal number, Jordan. So each one of your adjudicators sees 6 shows. Each one of your shows is attended by 6 adjudicators. All 6 adjudicators fill out the ballot. And when it comes time to scoring, the highest and lowest scores are dropped. So and then the score is a composite of the 4 middle ballots there. And that's pretty standard, and always our goal is, you see 6 and 6 come to each of your productions that you enter.
Great. And I'm assuming that it's not a set night that all adjudicators would need to attend. It's open to any performance during the run.
correct.
Thank you.
if I can give you some, just to comfort you a little bit with that, for those of you who are running companies wondering where 6 people are going to come from and when they're going to be at your shows. When you provide us with information about your shows, one of the things that we're going to ask you to provide us is the run dates, the run times. Our goal is to have that information from you 61 days before your show's first date. And on the 60th day, we're going to send out assignments of adjudicators. That gives us time to make sure that everyone can contact you, get a ticket for whichever show they can attend. There's always going to be folks who maybe can't attend or whatever. That 2-month window should provide us with plenty of time to, shake all of that out and make sure that we have 6 strong candidates to attend each show. So well in advance of the actual performances, everybody should know where they're going, where they're sitting, right? All that stuff. So.
And any questions that you may have regarding that will probably be something that we'll be in touch with, that I'll be in contact with. But this is going to be one of the important drivers behind why our theater companies and our group should be on Slack. Our liaison should be on Slack, and our adjudicators, because we can easily figure out a lot of that stuff as time goes on. But we will have all of this stuff planned for you, ready for you, and it should put your mind at ease.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions?
This actually might be a little more specific, but if we do have a show that the run starts a little bit before May 1st, would we still be able to submit it for consideration if the run continues past May 1st?
I think so. Yes, I would say so. If the run continues past May 1st, then that makes total sense, because we can get some shows in, just as long as it's not like one show.
Right.
Okay.
On a midnight on Sunday or something.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Many community theaters do 1 weekend of shows, and Jordan's are often 3 weekends of shows. So there's definitely more opportunity for that. One other feature that hasn't been addressed is the number of shows that a company submits is also going to dictate the number of shows that your adjudicators have to go out and see. And so, Jordan, that's something that you'll find out. If you're only submitting, again, this is the rules the way it used to be. Maybe it's still the same. I don't know. I haven't seen an online link for it yet. But if you're only submitting 2 shows, that means you have to provide 12 adjudicators. If you're submitting 3 shows, you have to submit 18 adjudicators. Could be the same 3 people going to 6 shows.
But let's be clear about language, because it's not adjudicators.
Yeah.
So I don't want folks to be confused. So
right. So that's why I said that 3 could go to 18 shows.
Yeah, adjudications, right? So yeah, I mean, it's like an old chain letter, right? You send 6, you get 6. We ask for a different individual for each show you nominate, right? So that no one person has to go to more than 6. In past years, and I'm going to defer to Matty on most of the adjudication stuff, it's because it's his team this year, but in most years, we've encouraged companies to sign up more adjudicators than necessary, so that the burden on each adjudicator is less than 6 shows. And if somebody has to quit during the year, it's just less of an issue. Because the expectation is, even if you're nominating a show for November of 2023, we may need to send you to adjudicate a show May 30th, right? So we're going to need all of your adjudicators available for the entire awards season. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a question then going off of that. So you mentioned, is this, so it's 6, you have to go and adjudicate 6 per show that you are nominating or putting in for NHTA. Does it matter who in the company goes? We have to have assigned specific adjudicators, or does it have to be just anybody who goes through the training?
So we're going to work from a list, right, of people who have been signed up as adjudicators. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure that they've trained so that they're eligible to be assigned to a show, right? So it's possible that you could submit, you know, a pretty long list of people from your company, but we'll need to make sure that they all get trained so that they're all eligible to attend a show. And then as shows are assigned, you know, the assignments are done from the pool of people that we have as eligible adjudicators.
And the reality is that the more adjudicators that we get, we can start saying things like up to 6, right? An adjudicator can go up to 6 shows, not necessarily go see all 6 shows. That's what we require. But if we have a plethora of adjudicators, of course, then we can see how the rotation will actually work out, in the sense that you won't necessarily have to go see as many shows. You don't have to see as many if we have more adjudicators.
So if your company nominates 1 production, but you're able to provide 3 adjudicators, then it's entirely possible that each person only has to see 2 shows.
Right.
Right.
How are you hoping to address issues? I know that in recent years past, there has been a real challenge getting enough adjudicators to review shows to get a statistical sample that was broad enough for the numbers to have meaning. Again, I know it's all volunteers and people are, you have to go with the pool that says, yes, they would be happy to do a show. But what happens, you know, I know that there was been this standard of, there's a hope to get 6 to every show, but anything less than 4 didn't get considered because of a lack of adjudicators, or how will that be addressed in the future?
Yeah, so if we can't get 3 people to a show, then we really can't get a measurement, right? So it's that's our failure if that happens. It's happened one time I know of in 5 years. And it's a huge issue if it happens. It's thankfully very rare, but you know, our goal with automated systems that we have this year, with the team that we have this year, is to be able to deliver 6 people to every show with a lot of advance notice. You know, the last few years, things were run entirely manually, and we just didn't have the bandwidth to handle cases where we had late cancels. But the way things are structured, I think Matty's group set up for big time success with that. And I'll let Matty speak, but we're also going to maintain a list of sort of internal at-large adjudicators that we can rely on for last-minute assignment, to make sure that even if we can't get a community person because of some late notice, late breaking event, that we still can deliver a trained adjudicator to your show. So the SLA here is 6 people. And we think we're set up for that.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would say, and Andrew, that's going to be different than years prior is Slack. That's going to be a big, big difference because the community gets much smaller when we are on a community together, when we're talking, when we're constantly getting notified, which we don't have to constantly be getting notified because that can get annoying. But the idea and the goal is to have targeted stuff to say, like, make sure that we have all 6 adjudicators going to a show. We can do this in real time versus the point-to-point email communication that we've had in the past, right? So if everybody's there and everybody's working towards the same goal, I have no doubt that we're going to get 15 adjudicators per show. That's a joke. That's a joke. We're not going to get 15 adjudicators per show.
Well, I really
I think
appreciate
that's
the
a really-
commitment to the technology to be able to do that stuff, because I think that will be a real help in this process. So thank you.
And I also think that the adjudication managers are going to play a big role in that as well, in really helping to liaise with the liaisons to really make sure that if there are gaps and there are holes, that we're identifying them earlier and that we're getting them filled quickly.
Justin and Maddie, hey, it's Eric Skoglund.
Hi.
Hey, in the past, didn't the adjudicator get somewhat like a warning if they didn't show up to the, getting back to Andrew's question about, you know, if you didn't get enough adjudicators to go to a show, in the past, wasn't that adjudicator sort of like warned? And then if it happened again, they got kicked out of it?
Yeah, so we used to have a pretty deep set of like penalty rules and stuff. I don't want to speak for Matty because I want him to have a free hand to run things as necessary, but what we've discussed is things are going to be a little bit different with our ballot this year. It's much simpler to submit if you want to submit it quickly. There's still room for commentary, but if you want to submit it quickly, you can. There's going to be a really short window to get that ballot in. And so we're not going to assign people to shows, I think, if their ballot isn't in or if there was an issue like this, right? And barring, I mean, the worst case scenario is telling us you're going, you get a free ticket from a company, there's an empty seat at a production, and then somehow you don't show up, right? That's
On the last week.
That's a huge show of disrespect to the theater company with an empty seat that they could have sold for money, to all of us who are working, to all the other people adjudicating, right? So your usual antics won't cut it, Skoglund. No, I'm kidding.
Me?
So the last time we did this, I don't think we had any no-shows. It's pretty rare for someone to do that. But I think if it does happen, you know, vice some excellent excuse, then we can't ask another company to set aside a ticket for that person again, right? And you know, sometimes life takes over, and you never know, the people who seem like they're going to be fantastic adjudicators, right? Things change for them during the year. So it's another reason that a company might want to provide, you know, more than the base requirement of folks, is if somebody goes through a situation where they can't do it anymore.
All right, that was it. I just wanted to add my 2 cents from the past, because I'm so old like Maddie that I do remember the handwritten adjudication forms, submitting those.
And if I could just add an additional comment, this has been discussed in our meetings, and you know, hopefully that's some of how, you know, the idea of committing with confidence will be part of the training and the new culture as we move forward. So it's a leap of faith at this point.
Our last year of training, there was a slide that said, if you no show, that I will find you and murder you. And we didn't have any no-shows that year. So I don't expect Matty to threaten murder this year, but I think people are gracious enough and respect the community enough that I don't think that would really be an issue.
Yeah, typically some of the things that we could talk about are, you know, elements of management of that when it comes to it. But like everyone said, we rely on our community to have a great event and to have the most positive experience that you can possibly have. And so we'll always be following up with the theater companies and ensuring that if something does happen, we have a postmortem, that we understand exactly what happened, what corrective measures will happen so that it doesn't happen again, and then just to continue to move on as a community.
I think one thing that's going to be different and really nice with Maddie's adoption of Slack is that a lot of the conversations that happen around the adjudication of a particular show will happen in the view of all the stakeholders for that show's adjudication. And so one of the things that did happen in the past is there's always a question of missed emails. I didn't see that, I didn't hear that. And I think that is going to feel very different this year.
And Eric, if you want your paper ballot back, I think I have it in the attic.
Good Lord, no, I don't want that back. I remember doing tabulation days.
Oh yeah.
I remember sitting there and doing the tabulations and doing the math.
We've come a long
Going
way.
forward, there
We've
will
come a
be no
long way.
math. You will never have to do math again for the New Hampshire Theater Awards. The math will all be handled by the ballot itself.
Amen. Amen in the chat. So that's adjudication. And I can turn it officially over to Irene. Is that right?
Sure. Just going to go back through the chat for any additional questions. And some of them we read aloud and some of them we didn't. So there was a lot, there was some questions about Slack and all that training. And so certainly we addressed some of that. Plus anyone on the interim board can help. And we also have additional people who are helping. So people will not be floundering without anybody to reach out to. There's a lot of great questions about the adjudication process and how many adjudicators and some of the nuts and bolts of things. And please know that our goal is to be transparent and have the information available, but please understand we are a volunteer board. And so we're getting to meet these goals. And so thank you for your patience with that. It's our intention to have information accessible for everyone. Sorry, me and forgetting to mute as I'm going through here. Okay. Yes, some redundancies. Thank you, Andrew, for that. Yeah, certainly having backup. So there was just something from Andrew about redundancy and scheduling adjudications, and hopefully with the layers that we have in the process with the adjudication managers and then communicating with the liaisons and then the companies having more adjudicators than you need, hopefully we're really building in some of the redundancies. With that said, is there anything else that people have for questions for tonight?
How soon will we have a link to the rules, or how companies can sign up? I know looking at the schedule, it's an ambitious schedule, but if training begins March 1st and you expect to begin adjudications May 1st, and you want to have a 60-day window to be assigning adjudicators to that May 1st, you don't really have that 60-day window. So how soon can we expect that sign up link to be available, and also the rules, so that companies can go online and figure out what they have to do and how they go through the process of nominations and things of that nature? Or is that expected to be a part of the adjudication training? Will there be a separate company training that's held separately? I know that's a bunch of questions, but I know that we have some folks on this call that may have never have done this before and don't have the background information. And we've already talked in high level terms for people who are just trying to get acquainted.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Irene. Please.
No, Maddie, please, because so we've talked about a little bit of where the rules are going to be housed, but I'm not. Justin, can you speak to that? Because certain things are going to be on Confluence, and then
Andrew, I would say imminent. So our goal is to make some Facebook announcements in the morning around everything we talked about tonight. And at some point this week to have everything available to everybody. So it's really our just effort to make sure things are edited and that we all are, that what we put public is ready for public consumption. So, but our goal is to have everything imminently available, because I recognize that that's a tight timeline.
Yeah.
There'll be links sent out via our social media channels once those are available. And then, I can certainly send a follow-up email to everybody who is on this call as well, just so that you all have it once it's ready and available to be used.
It might be nice to email all of the prior participating
Of
organizations.
course,
Are
that's
not
one of the
doing
things that
social
is
media?
absolutely
Yeah,
going
certainly
out.
part of the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
100%.
Is there anything else?
I have a question for the group. If there are no other questions. My question for the group is simply to think about folks you know who may be interested in volunteering with an organization like ours. We're still eagerly seeking people to get involved at all levels. So we've had a great response so far, a fantastic response. But the more the merrier. So if you know folks who are maybe adjacent to your theater companies who like to be involved in things, but maybe not on stage, or looking for a volunteer project, please put them in touch with us.
And share the news, right? With all your networks, with all your information, with others that NHTA is back and that we're making progress and that we have a award ceremony date and a launch date. So, a tentative launch date, but that's our aggressive timeline right now. So that's what we're doing. So the more the merrier. Looking forward to anybody joining us, and for those who have joined us before, returning.
And very thankful for everybody that's come out. As we said in the last meeting, we were worried that this meeting would be guess there's no more NHTAs because nobody wants to do anything meeting, but it's been the exact opposite. We were blown away by the amount of people that are like, let's get back to New Hampshire Theater Alliance and New Hampshire Theater Awards. So thank you guys. As we said, it's, we're all volunteer right now, and could not survive without the support.
And please save the date for 2024 for Saturday, January 20th. And there'll be more about that, but it'll be back at the Capitol Center. And stay tuned. There's more information to come. So that should be it for tonight. How's that?
And we will make the recording available too for those who are not able to attend.
Thank
And
you
please
very much
reach out
for
to any of
signing
us.
up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So I was just say thank you, board members, for reviving it and having it keep on going. I think it's important. I think it's a great thing for New Hampshire theater.
The idea of community, it'll be great to get back to kind of that normal operations and seeing people a lot more than we have been these last few years. So, and thanks for hanging in there since paper ballots. Oh my goodness.
Well, I'm going to urge anyone who would like to test their adjudication skills before the adjudication to attend any show at Hatbox Theater in the next few months. We have a number of shows, including one member of your board is having something in there. There's lots of theater out there. There has been lots of theater out there. And so even though the focus of this organization is on the awards, bear in mind that there are at least as many, if not more, people not participating in the awards that need to be reflected somehow and brought into this. So I am deeply grateful to all of the individuals who worked on the ballots during the pandemic. I helped for a bit, but then I had to jump because of work and whatnot. But for the commitment to visiting what this is and how it's done, It is important to our community. So thank you for putting in all those extra volunteer hours on top of work and your passion projects. So thank you.
Hey, Andrew, you bring up an idea that I think Dan and I have talked about for training, which is, and when we think training, think about an ongoing thing, not just a March to May thing, right? But we think it'd be great if we could have some opportunities, companies willing to maybe attend a dress or some sort of performance where we can do test runs of the ballot with folks who want to have that level of training. And if you think you'd be interested in working with something like that,
just let me know.
Talk to us. Yeah.
And I also have a show that opens literally right before RC. It opens the weekend before we start, but I'd be more than happy that anyone that's gone through training and wants a dry run could come see our production of The Wolves and check that out, or hell, come see my students perform and take the ballot for a test drive. I'm not just trying to sell tickets. I'm trying to get you to come see theater. But no, yeah, I think growing to see other shows and things would be a great thing. And we had discussed, I know that there had been some times in the past, I believe previously Peacock Players had hosted a like come see a dress rehearsal as a training thing. And if we could make things like that happen, it'd be great.
And thanks, there's a lot of positive stuff in the chat. Thank you, everyone. And it's so great that you joined us tonight for this meeting. So we'll see you all again, hopefully, as we have more Zooms and trainings, and stay tuned. It's exciting. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks all.
Bye.
And